Today I am going to discuss Indian Contract Act 1872 Act. That means what is called contract? Contract is derived from the Latin term that is called contractum. Contractum means drawn together. Drawn together means two parties they drawn together by virtue of an agreement. So certain words are there: agreement, contract. Let us discuss what is called contract. Any agreement that is enforceable by law is called a contract. That means to pass this idea of this contract, all agreements should be enforceable by law. Any agreement which is not enforceable by law is not a contract. So now let us discuss what is called agreement. When two or more parties assents or given consent to a thing and they agree on a particular point, that is called an agreement. So in all agreement, any sort of agreement, two things must be there. One, there is offer from one party, he is called offerer, and the offer must be accepted by the other party, who is called offeree. He will accept the offer. So offer plus acceptance is equal to agreement. So in all agreements there must be offer, and the offer must be accepted by the other side, that offeree. So once there is a offer and acceptance is there, it is a agreement. Now let us discuss what is called contract. In case of contract, there must be an agreement. Agreement must be there. That is the essence of contract. Once that is a agreement, provided that agreement must be enforceable under law. So agreement plus enforceability, it constitute a contract. So in all contract there must be agreement, and provided that agreement must be enforceable. To make the agreement enforceable, certain procedures, certain laws are there. So once the agreement is enforceable, it is called a contract. So definition, so in all contract there must be agreement, but all agreements are not contract. So in all contract there is agreement, all the agreement must be having capacity to enforceable. So once the agreement is having enforceability or capacity of enforceability, it is a contract. Now let us define the definition of the term agreement. In all agreements, at least assembly of two parties is very much essential. Two parties at least must be there, and there must be one of the party will propose something, that is called proposal, and that proposal must be accepted by the other side, that is called acceptance by the other side. Once there is a proposal and side by side coupled with acceptance, it becomes a agreement. So in all agreement, proposal and acceptance are very much essential and immediate factors for deciding a agreement. And in all contracts, so it is very well said that all contracts are agreement, all agreements are not contract. So in all cases of contract, because agreement is very much present, that's why it is very well said all contracts are agreement, all agreements are not contract. Now let us discuss what are the essential elements of a contract, that is enumerated in section 10 of the Indian Contract Act. At least there is assembly of two parties. All contracts must be headed by at least two parties, at least. Then both the parties, all the parties, they must be having consensus ad idem. That means suppose in a contract two parties are there, both the parties must have having consensus ad idem. The consensus as it is, that means the consent of mind must be there, and both the parties must have understood the terms of the contract. So it is a case of consensus ad idem. Thirdly, capacity to make contract. That means the parties must be capable enough to enter into a contract. This capacity is decided in the terms of the majority or minority. So in all cases of contract, the parties must be major. A minor cannot enter into a contract. There is a reported case, Dharamdas Ghosh versus Mohri Bibi. In that case, it is a dispute relating to minor has entered into a contract. The court has decided verdict accordingly that the gist of the decision is that a minor cannot enter into a contract. That is called capacity of the party. Then free consent of the party is very much present. Once the element of all the negative elements of contracts are there, suppose coercion, inducement, misrepresentation, mistake, if all these things are there, inducement is there, that the contract is not valid. So the free consent of parties is very much mentioned. Before entering into a contract, the parties must not be affected with inducement or any misrepresentation or any deception. So if these things are present, it is invalid. Otherwise, if the consent is free of the parties, then it is case coming under the attracting the provision of free consent, and once free consent is there, it is very much essential to formation of a contract. Then next point is lawful consideration. The consideration, whatever that is agreed lawful, the consideration must be the object of the contract. So the consideration must be lawful. It should not be any unlawful, or it should not be a meager amount. That means the contract, suppose a person is going to sell a house, there must be specific lawful consideration. It does not mean a person will sell his house for 50 rupees or 20 rupees like that. So there must be a lawful consideration, and consideration must flow from the purchaser to the seller. That means from second party to first party. That is called lawful consideration. Then another very important aspect that is called possibility of performance of contract. That means the parties must be entering into a contract that must be possible by the parties. Anything which is impossible, it is not a contract. So these are some of the important aspect of law relating to essentials of contract, and these grounds are when very much present in a contract, that contract is said to be valid. So that is why it is said that all these are essential points for formation of a valid contract. Now let us discuss what are the different kinds or types of contracts. There are basically four types of or kinds of contract. First is called valid contract. When all these elements just now whatever we have discussed under section 10 is very much present in a contract, it is called a valid contract. Then voidable contract, then second is called void contract. Any of the element that be negative element, suppose undue influence is there, misrepresentation is there, coercion is there, inducement is there. If any of this negative element is very much present, the contract is ipso facto void. Anything which is not enforceable under law, that is called void, and it is ipso facto void if the elements are very much present. So the contract is not enforceable under law. The void contracts are not enforceable under law. Then another type of contract that is called voidable contract, means any contract that is valid for the time being. At the time of formation of contract, that contract is valid, but it can be declared voidable at the option of one of the party. Any party who is in losure, he can declare the contract to be voidable. So it is declared to be voidable at the option of one side or one party. So that type of contract is called voidable. Initially it is good, stands good, but subsequently it is declared to be voidable. So that type of contract is called voidable. Then another type of contract that is called unenforceable contract. Any unenforceable contract that is also not enforceable under law, and that is due to some lacuna or some mistakes or short deeds are there. That's why that contract is not enforceable. Suppose a registration, for registration, suppose stamp duty is not there, that cannot be enforceable. Certain contracts are there where registration is compulsory. If the document or the contract paper is not registered, it is unenforceable under law. And another one type of also contract that is there, the illegal contract. Anything done contravention to this formation of contract, that is illegal. Restraint in place of marriage, restraint any contract in relation to marriage, so that is a illegal contract, that is void. Any contract done to do something illegal activity, or a contract to cause murder to a person, so all these are coming under this illegal contract. So these are some of the different types of contracts given under this Indian Contract Act. Now let us discuss very important aspect of another type of contract, that is called wagering contract. That is enumerated in section 30, and side by side we will discuss insurance contract or contract of indemnity. Wagering contracts means that is betting contract. In wagering contract, one of the party while entering into contract do not know what will be the fate of the contract. When that is not clear at the time of formation of contract, those type of contracts are called wagering contract. Cricket match. In cricket match, some betting is done by two parties, that one party will win, one party lose. So that type of contracts are all wagering contracts, and all the wagering contracts are void and it is not enforceable under law. Now we will discuss another aspect of law, that is called indemnity, contract of indemnity or insurance contract. Indemnity means one person will take the risk of another by entering into a contract. In a one contract, suppose in the issuance of the policy of this fire insurance. In case of fire insurance policy, the insurance company is indemnifying any loss that will be sustained to the owner for the premises which is under fire. So it is one kind of, so this policy is collateral to something that will happen in future. anything that will happen in future or in any special contingency or on the ebb of something that will happen in future. For that, if somebody is taking any risk, for that the insurance company normally used to take risk. So that type of contract is called law contract of indemnity. So this is another type of contract that is called indemnity contract. Then we will discuss another one aspect of contract that is called contingent. There is slight difference between indemnity contract and contingent contract. Contingent contract is a contract to do or not to do something, or on happening of something or non happening of something in future, collateral to that event. So it is a contingency. That means, so suppose somebody has taken a fire policy, so the contract will be enforceable only if fire will take place. So that is a contingency. If the fire will take place, that is a contingency. So that is a collateral to the terms and conditions of the contract. That's why it is called contingent contract. So these are some of the different kinds and different aspects of contract under this our Indian Contract Act. Now let us discuss how to the contract will be discharged. Discharge of contract by different method. Certain methods are enumerated by which a contract is going to be discharged. First discharge of contract is by performance of contractual obligation. When two parties are entering into a contract, there is a obligation that exists obligation amongst each other. Both the parties are having contractual obligation. Once the contract is performed or completely completed, the completion, after completion of the contract, after performing the contractual obligation, the performance of the contract is completed. Accordingly, the contract is discharged. So this is the first mode of discharge of contract. Second is by subsequent agreement, that is called, basing on a new theory, that is called novation theory. That means a contract comes to an end and new contract come into existence. Of course, under certain terms and conditions. Sometimes while entering into new contract under novation theory, the earlier terms and conditions are remain as it is, and only the parties are changed. Or where sometimes the parties are as it is, but the terms and conditions are changed. So when a new contract comes into operation, the earlier contract which was existed, that is discharged. That is that is terminated, and a new contract come into operation by the theory of novation. So that is called by subsequent contract, a contract can be discharged. Third is by impossibility of performance. That is based on theory that is called doctrine of frustration. When a contract while performing it was found to be impossible in future to complete the contract during the contractual period or time period, so definitely the theory of frustration come into operation. At that time, the earlier contract will come to an end and the new contract may develop. So when the person who has entered into the contract express his inability or not accept the contract, that's why that inability is the prime factor to declare that contract cannot be fulfilled. So he can withdraw from the contract. So up to what extent he has done, out of that the contract will be discharged, and the rest portions will be done by some other methods. So whatever that is given under this contract. So this is called doctrine of frustration theory, or by that means otherwise called by impossibility of performance. When the contract found to be impossible, the contract can be discharged. Then another method by breach of contract. That means when in the terms and conditions whatever that is entered between the parties, there is any sort of breach by either of the parties, the contract will be terminated. So that is called discharge of contract. Once the contract is terminated due to breach amongst the parties, or any of the party has committed breach, the other party, against the other party, the contract comes to an end, the contract is indirectly discharged by the breach of the party. The another contract, when a time gap is there, suppose 1 year time is there for contractual obligation or contractual performance. After expiry of this 1 year period, by the lapse of time, a contract can also be discharged. So that is called by the lapse of time, a contract also can be discharged between the parties. So there is another method of discharge of contract, that is called by operation of law. While undergoing with the contract, by the operation of some new law or operation of law, the contract can also be discharged. Suppose while entering into a contract between two countries, there is a war broke out between one country. So the other country become the alien enemy. So at that time, definitely the entire contract is automatically discharged by the operation of law. When the operation of law, that means when there is a change in situation or some new legislation, new law came into force, at that time automatically the earlier contract stands discharged. So this is another method of discharge of contract. So these are basically some of the important methods or points by which a contract can be discharged. Now let us discuss very important discussion relating to quasi contract. That means some of the contract seems like a contract, but actually there is no express or implied no express provisions of contract is there. There is no express agreement or contract to that effect, but it seems like a contract. That's why it is called quasi contract, or it is a kind of partial contract. No, it is not a real contract, but resembles like a contract. For suppose a person shall not be, the principle of this quasi contract is a person shall not be enriched itself at the expense of another. And and another method is also there, that is called suppose a person got a purse on the road. So it is the duty of that person to find out who is the owner of the purse. If he is not discharging his duty to that effect and going to misappropriate the money, whatever that is found inside the purse, it is breach of this contract. So that is one of the breach of quasi contract. So it is the duty of that person to find out who is the real owner of that purse. So finder of goods also plays a very vital role in this breach of contract. So there is no express contract between a person. Suppose a person lost something on the road. One person found that material from the road. So that person is called finder of good. So certain provision of law is there. He has to maintain certain things as per the provision of law. He has to take utmost care of that property which he has found from the road. So the finder of loss of the goods, he also plays a part, just like the parties have entered into a quasi contract. So it is the duty of the party to find out the person to whom that purse belongs or who has lost the good. So once the person is detected or find out, it is his duty to reimburse whatever money he has spent or expensed for the searching that person. After whatever the money he has spent, that if that money is paid to that person, then only the property or material can be returned. So there are certain terms of quasi contract. Even though there is no express provision relating to how a property will be returned, still then the parties have entered into a quasi contract. So even though there is no express provision, both the parties by their implied condition or by any statutory conditions, they have entered into a contract. Those contracts, even though it is not in express or it is not in written form, still then it resembles like a contract. That's why these are some of the very good examples of quasi contracts. In our everyday life, people are coming into quasi contracts. So many terms and provisions we have to follow, even though there is no express provision. Somebody is traveling by train, somebody is traveling flight, he has purchased a flight ticket. So all these are coming under quasi contract. Once there is a purchase of railway ticket, a person becomes the passenger and the authority railway. So they have entered into a contract. Even though there is no express provision, no writing is there, still then the parties are entering into a contract. The passenger has got certain obligation towards the railway. Similarly, the railway is also having certain obligation towards the passenger. So their obligations are vice versa. So both the parties has to comply their obligation in terms of contract. Even though there is no express provision, both have indirectly entered into a contract. So this indirect entry of contract, that contract resembles like a contract, even though there is no express provision, that is called quasi contract. All these things are mentioned in from section 68 up to section 72 of Indian Contract Act. Now lastly we will discuss some of the methods, remedies for any breach of contract. What are the remedies available for any sort of breach of contract that is more expressed under this provision? First, rescission of contract. Once there is a breach of contract, either of the party can withdraw from the contract. That withdrawing from the contract is called rescission of contract. That means when the party has breached, the other party has got option to rescission, to come out from the contract. That is called rescission of contract. Second method of this remedy available is suit for specific performance. If some contract has been made between two parties to perform something and the one of the parties breaching that term and condition, the other party can enforce his right by filing a suit or claiming damages, by filing a suit for claiming this breach of contract for specific performance. Whatever the contract he has entered in as per the contractual obligation, he is bound under law to fulfill that contract. So any breach thereof, the party has got option to file a suit in the civil court for specific performance of contract. Then third method of this remedy available is suit for damages for suit for quantum merit. That means a claiming of damage is also available under this contract. Whatever loss he has sustained, so that will be claimed by the party, and that will be remedied under this damage. That means there is a formula that is called quantum merit. Up to what extent a person is merited. That means up to what extent, suppose a contract is entered for 1 year for formation of work within 1 year. Up to this 50% of the contractual obligation or work was done. Subsequently, it was not performed, and it due to some this breach, or there is any violation of contract. So up to what extent he has performed, that has to be paid. So that is called quantum merit. Up to what extent anything that is merited. So up to what extent any performance of contract is made, up to that extent a person will be paid. And the rest person, for that, for non-performance, a damage can also be claimed under this remedial method. Then last method is for suit of injunction. For any non-performance of contract, a person can approach the civil court for issue of injunction, so that the party will be bound under law to do or not do something or undo something as per the injunction granted by the court. So these are some of the remedial method. These are available under our Indian contract for any sort of breach. So these are general principles of Indian contract. That's why it is called contract part 1, and all the principles relating to formation of contract, breach of contract, then different types of contract, elements of contract, which are negative elements of contract. All these things are mentioned in this contract. That's why it is called contract, preliminary contract, or general principles of contract. That is called contract paper number 1.